Did Jimmy Kimmel just meet his match? Well, you'll want to watch this one because Bill Burr just gave Jimmy and his audience a vital reality check around Donald Trump and how cheering on the current criminal trial against him is the worst strategic move the Democrats could make. But I think the clip that you're about to watch reveals something else as well. In a world where comedians are making more sense than a pundit, Bill snapping Jimmy out of his Trump obsession to show him the big picture reveals a change in him as well. There's a lot more that we need to talk about after you look at this.
If you want to see a great case thing on like narcissism, liberals are so stupid the way that they handle Trump.
What do you mean?
You should shut up. He's a narcissist. Neutral energy.
Yeah.
Neutral.
You think he'd go away?
You know what I think he was? I think he was a one-hit wonder. Right? He wrote The Twist. And then that was it. He was on the casino circuit, and then you idiot liberals wrote him Twist again when you indicted him. And now he's a martyr.
And now he's
coming back, Jimmy.
The peppermint twist is back.
He's coming back. It's going to be great for comedy. He's coming back.
You know what makes that more believable? Bill Burr in the early days of Trump was on a similar road to Jimmy Kimmel as a comedian, making Donald Trump a subject of his attention and material. Jimmy famously had friction with Donald Trump over his instance on aiming the cannon of his comedy and mockery toward him, with things like a cheap jibe during the Oscars or inviting Stormy Daniels on his show multiple times. But over the last 8 years, all of that attention, whether positive or negative, has only made Trump a bigger force for it. Take, for example, the current case you're seeing, which is about to enter its third week, with Donald Trump being the first former president in U.S. history to undergo a criminal trial for hush money payment for a one-night stand 18 years ago. The image that the Republican base is getting and how Donald Trump has expertly sold it is that the trial is unfair in an attempt to derail his campaign. Now, whether or not that's true is a separate debate, but right now the mere perception is enough to make a serious impact. The last thing the Democrats need is to make Donald Trump a martyr before the November election, and that seems to be what's happening. There was an incredible poll that came out last year that revealed how 63% or nearly two-thirds of Republicans say they would vote for Donald Trump even if he was found guilty or convicted. It's so easy to laugh off all of those people as naive or brainwashed, but the fact that they believe that still means that there's a widening trust deficit among those people in the courts and legal systems as compromised or out to get Donald Trump. That's the last thing the Democrats or the courts should ever do if they don't want to see him come back as president even stronger. Now, I think Bill Burr understands that even though he's been doing much of the same in the last few years, and if there's a core of political acumen to him, that means he's going to change course. And that's evident by what he said here.
I can't believe like these are honestly going to be our two choices because I really try to with each thing to try to be like figure out who I'm going to, but I mean, it's got to be, I want somebody in their 40s, somebody that's going to have to live with their decisions. I don't want like, you know, with any luck, they'll both die of natural causes before the election. And maybe you could get somebody that still has something to live for.
Wow.
You know?
This year, you're not going to get a visit from Santa, but you are going to get a visit from the Secret Service.
Why? I said die peacefully.
Oh, you did? I didn't hear peacefully.
I did.
Oh,
and then you threw that in.
I must have thrown that in.
Bus.
Yeah. Bill Burr is here. He means no harm.
The answer to that question is that we technically can. There's nothing stopping any citizen to try and run for president, but they'll have to climb the long and arduous ladder of first becoming relevant and convince enough people to vote for them. Biden did that through a 50-year political career, and Trump hopped on board into politics after gaining that fame and relevance in real estate and television. But it's certainly interesting how the United States Constitution gives a minimum age to run for president, which is 35, and yet no upper limit. That's a difficult question to decide for something so strict and impersonal as the Constitution, and is perhaps better left to the voter base and electorate. But you know something you can't just relegate to someone else? That's your financial future without the shelter of stable assets like precious metals. And that's exactly what a company like Birch Gold helps you do, so click the link in the description or text the words FFIRA to 989898 to get started. Now, I think that's why you see even Democrat circles point to Biden's age as a factor that he might still lose to Trump, and yet Trump is very rarely questioned over his age or even fitness for office despite being nearly the same age. But I think that's almost a sidetrack to this point because the decisions that people are making are very seldom based on sound rationality, and more based on their emotions, tribal affinities, and long-term political affiliations. In that sense, optics are important, and Donald Trump has certainly found the art of how to use optics and narratives to make sure that he comes out on top, no matter if he wins or loses. And that's a game that the Democrats inadvertently have helped Donald Trump in over the last 6 years. Watch him reiterate that just a few days ago, coming out of the court after giving his opening statements.
He puts in an invoice or whatever, a bill, and they pay, they go at a legal expense. I got indicted for that. What else would you call it? Actually, nobody's been able to say what you're supposed to call it. If a lawyer puts in a bill or an invoice and you pay the bill, and in the book, it's a little line, that's a very small little line. I don't know if you could even write more than 2 words. It's not like you could tell a life story. They marked it down to a legal expense. This is what I got indicted over. Think of it. I got indicted. I'm the leading candidate. I'm beating Biden. I'm beating the Republicans now. I have the nomination. And this is what they try to take me off the trail for.
And it's hard to imagine that his base wouldn't take that seriously. The current trial, which is happening in New York of all places, has been mired in controversy from the start. First of all, many pundits are arguing how the case around Stormy Daniels and the alleged hush money payments is actually the weakest of his current trials, which range from alleged civil fraud to mishandling documents. The optics look bad and often just prove counterproductive. That's similar to what we saw a few months ago when Donald Trump's mugshot came out, which only served to rile up his base even further and made t-shirts out of it. And right now, it's also serving to bolster his narrative for his base when you see things like Trump claiming that the trial actually prevented him from attending his son Barron Trump's graduation, which creates a really emotional angle that adds to the picture that he wants to portray of the entire case. In Donald Trump's remarks outside court a few days ago, he also used the trial and its optics to help reinforce something else he's been calling for since long, and that's presidential immunity.
Today we had, I hear, because I was forced to be here, and I'm glad I was because it was a very interesting day in a certain way, but the U.S. Supreme Court had a monumental hearing on immunity, and the immunity having to do with presidential immunity. And I think it was made clear, I hope it was made clear, that a president has to have immunity, or you don't have a president, or at most you can say it would be a ceremonial president. That's not what the founders had in mind. They're not talking about ceremonial. We want presidents that can get things done and bring people together.
You don't even need to lean one side of the political aisle to another to realize that the bad political strategy coming from the Democratic quarters is only helping Donald Trump solidify and sell his narrative as we speed toward the election. And Trump, being a master salesman, knows how to package even his losses in a way that they eventually help him win. Someone like Jimmy Kimmel may not know it, but I think what Bill Burr has understood is that sometimes it is better to let the storm pass quietly. Perhaps Donald Trump's political career would have been one such storm instead of becoming a political firebrand that a large segment of the electorate believes can do no wrong. As that happens, Donald Trump will eventually become too big to cancel or vilify, and we may quickly be approaching that point with much of the Republican base.